Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Hamas sees surge of support as Palestinian prisoners are released. Mediators try to revive Israel-Hamas ceasefire as fighting resumes. International partners must step up in Gaza. The Israel-Hamas truce has ended, what we know so far. The resumption of the Israel-Hamas war casts long shadow over Dubai's COP28 climate talks. Hamas sees surge of support as Palestinian prisoners are released. Wall Street Journal. Hamas has secured the release of more than 200 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails, many of whom were being held without trial, according to the Wall Street Journal. Although most Palestinians now view the Palestinian Authority as ineffective and corrupt, they are becoming more supportive of Hamas. The 50-year Israeli occupation of the West Bank and the 2014 war in Gaza have caused greater support for the Islamist group. Polling by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research indicates that support for Hamas in the West Bank has risen from 12% to 40%, and in Gaza it is around 40%. The release of prisoners is considered by many to be the most important factor leading to the rise in support for Hamas. The situation is challenging for Israel, which is trying to destroy Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority, which is losing support. Hamas is trying to show that it has the ability to bring Palestinians out of prison, said Diana Batu, a Palestinian lawyer and former peace negotiator. A Hamas official said that the group had made the prisoner release a key part of the recent ceasefire deal in order to gain public support. Mediators try to revive Israel-Hamas ceasefire as fighting resumes. Wall Street Journal. Israel and Hamas have resumed fighting as a week-long truce came to an end. Israel has warned Palestinians in the area of Khan Yunis, a Hamas stronghold, to leave as they suspect Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar, is hiding there along with senior military commanders and possibly dozens of Israeli hostages. Israel has said that if fighting continues, they will undertake a more targeted military operation to limit civilian casualties and damage to buildings and infrastructure. The U.S. has been hopeful in restoring the truce, however, discussions have collapsed as Hamas has had difficulty obtaining access to 4 women hostages held by other groups in Gaza. International partners must step up in Gaza. Financial Times. The writer argues that the breach in the temporary ceasefire in Gaza highlights the fragility of the situation and suggests that neither side can be complacent about the compliance of the other. Israel is prepared to continue with its land operations in Gaza, while Hamas is using the truce to prepare for the next round of fighting. The writer suggests that there are no obvious mechanisms in place to deal with the immediate problems facing Gaza and that there is no political process currently in place to bring this round of fighting to a conclusion. The Israel-Hamas truce has ended, what we know so far. Al Jazeera. Israel has resumed air raids in Gaza after a 7-day pause in fighting. The truce between Israel and Hamas began on November 24 and was renewed twice before ending on Friday. During the truce, fighting was paused, humanitarian aid was allowed to enter Gaza, and prisoners were exchanged. However, despite the pause in fighting, Israeli forces shot at Palestinians in Gaza on November 29, killing 2 people, and shelled people on November 30. The truce was supposed to be extended, but an hour before it was set to end, Israel announced that its Iron Dome missile defense system had detected incoming rockets. Israel intercepted one of the rockets, but it is unclear who fired them. After the truce deadline passed without an extension, Israeli air raids and artillery fighting resumed in Gaza. At least 54 people have been killed since Israel's attacks resumed. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Qatar expressed deep regret at the resumption of Israeli aggression and stated that negotiations between Hamas and Israel are continuing in order to return to a state of the pause. The resumption of the Israel-Hamas war casts long shadow over Dubai's COP28 climate talks. Associated Press. The collapse of a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war on November 11 has overshadowed the COP28 climate summit in Dubai. Israel's top diplomat for the Middle East attended the conference and insisted that the war had not damaged Israel's ties with the UAE and others, despite tragic images of dead Palestinian women and children. Meanwhile, a Palestinian climate change expert questioned the point of negotiating on climate change in the middle of a genocide and warned that the costs of repairing the war damage would reduce funding for climate mitigation. Pain and an uncertain future for Palestinian students shot in Vermont. Washington Post. The recent shooting of 3 Palestinian students in Vermont has raised fears of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism on American college campuses. The 3 students, who were studying at Haverford College, Trinity College, and Brown University, were shot while taking an evening stroll. Authorities have charged 48-year-old Jason Eaton with 3 counts of attempted murder and said it was a hateful act. However, they have not yet determined whether it was a hate crime. Students at the colleges have reacted with fear and anger to the shootings, with many concerned that they could be targeted next. The incident follows on from the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel and Israel's invasion of the Gaza Strip, which has heightened tensions and concerns about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on American campuses. The three students, Tahsin Ali Ahmad, Hisham al-Wartani, and Kinan Abdalhamid, were all born in the West Bank and grew up in the shadow of the Israeli occupation. They had known each other since childhood and all attended the Ramallah Friends School. The attack has been devastating for the students and their families, who had spent the Thanksgiving holiday together and were looking forward to spending more time together. Two of the students remain in hospital, with one having a bullet lodged near his spine and the other still weak from blood loss. The shooting has had a profound impact on the Palestinian American community and has raised concerns about the safety of students on American campuses. Students at Brown University have accused the administration of not taking their concerns seriously and failing to protect them. The shooting is also likely to increase concerns about the rise of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism in the U.S. Harris heads to Dubai to tackle delicate tasks of talking climate and Israel-Hamas war. Associated Press. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will attend the United Nations Conference on Climate Change in Dubai, where she will deliver remarks and hold bilateral meetings with regional leaders. The conference, known as COP28, will include an assessment of progress in the battle against global warming since the Paris Agreement in 2015. Harris's attendance will demonstrate U.S. environmental leadership, despite President Joe Biden's absence. Biden's decision to skip the conference has been criticized, but Harvard University professor Robert Stavins said his absence will not have a substantive impact. Stavins added that the most important goal should be for the U.S. and China to rebuild their partnership on climate change. Harris also plans to discuss the conflict between Israel and Hamas with regional leaders. This will allow her to participate in one of the most precarious foreign policy challenges facing the White House and to reach out to younger voters, who are more likely to be critical of U.S. support for Israel. Mediators push to renew truce as world recoils at reignited Israel-Gaza war. Al Jazeera. Efforts to renew the truce between Israel and Hamas are continuing, according to mediator Qatar, despite Israel resuming its bombardment of Gaza and killing dozens of people. The world has reacted with disappointment and horror at the breakdown of the truce and called for urgent efforts to stop the violence and prevent further civilian casualties. Both Israel and Hamas have blamed each other for the breakdown of the truce. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office stated that Hamas had violated the truce by launching rockets at Israeli citizens and failing to release all of the women hostages. Hamas officials claimed that Israel had worked to disrupt efforts to extend the truce. Qatar, Egypt, and the United States have been mediating between the two sides, and Qatar confirmed that negotiations are continuing with the aim of returning to a state of pause. However, Qatar warned that the renewed fighting is complicating mediation efforts and exacerbating the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Israel plans four-long war and aims to kill top 3 Hamas leaders. Financial Times. Israel is reportedly planning a year-long campaign against Hamas, with the most intensive phase of the ground offensive continuing into early 2024. The multi-phase strategy includes killing the top Hamas leaders, destroying the group's battalions and tunnel network, and eliminating its governing capability in Gaza. Israeli forces are preparing to make a push deep into the south of the besieged Palestinian enclave. The overall strategy for Gaza is flexible, with timing dictated by multiple factors such as operational progress, international pressure, and opportunities to free Israeli hostages. A senior Israeli military officer said at least 10 of 24 Hamas battalions had been significantly hurt, with over 50 mid-level commanders and around 5,000 fighters killed. The offensive is expected to require a few more months, followed by a transition and stabilization phase of lower military intensity that could continue into late 2024. Israeli officials have acknowledged the need for a different approach in the south, with a focus on protecting civilians and allowing for increased humanitarian aid. An unfortunate arrangement, Malawians alarmed as workers head to Israel. Al Jazeera. The Malawian government has sent hundreds of its citizens to Israel to work as farm laborers. The move is designed to raise much-needed foreign currency as Malawi faces a cash crunch and a shortage of forex. The country is also grappling with a cost-of-living crisis and a devalued currency. The recent decision to send workers to Israel is part of a broader effort by the government to generate jobs for its young population and increase foreign exchange. However, the move has sparked controversy within the country, with critics questioning the timing and expressing concerns about the safety of those sent to Israel due to the ongoing conflict in the region. The Malawian government has stated that the workers will not be involved in warfare and that their safety and security will be prioritized. However, commentators have noted that other countries, including Thailand, are withdrawing their citizens from Israel due to the conflict. Some have described the arrangement as akin to modern-day slavery and have called for greater transparency and accountability from the government. Ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Dr. Six, your favorite observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news from across the dimensions. So, let's dive right in. First, we have news from the Middle East, where support for Hamas is surging as Palestinian prisoners are released. Many Palestinians are turning to Hamas as they view the Palestinian Authority as ineffective and corrupt. The release of prisoners has been a key factor in increasing support for Hamas. This is challenging for both Israel, which is trying to destroy Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority, which is losing support. It seems Hamas is trying to prove its ability to bring Palestinians out of prison and gain public support. In related news, Israel and Hamas have resumed fighting as a week-long truce came to an end. Israel has warned Palestinians in a Hamas stronghold to leave, suspecting that Hamas's leader is hiding there along with Israeli hostages. Israel has vowed to limit civilian casualties and damage to buildings and infrastructure in a more targeted military operation. The U.S. has been hopeful in restoring the truce, but discussions have collapsed due to difficulties for Hamas in obtaining access to hostages held by other groups in Gaza. Moving on to the international stage, the breach in the temporary ceasefire in Gaza highlights the fragility of the situation. There are no obvious mechanisms in place to deal with the immediate problems facing Gaza, and there is no political process currently in place to bring this round of fighting to a conclusion. It's a challenging situation that requires the international community to step up and find a solution. Meanwhile, in Vermont, the shooting of 3 Palestinian students has raised concerns about Islamophobia and anti-Semitism on American college campuses. The attack has had a profound impact on the Palestinian American community and has sparked fears among students. This incident is a stark reminder of the tensions and divisions that exist in our world. On a brighter note, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is heading to Dubai to tackle the delicate tasks of talking climate and the Israel-Hamas war. She will attend the United Nations Conference on Climate Change and discuss the conflict between Israel and Hamas with regional leaders. It's an opportunity for the U.S. to showcase its environmental leadership and engage with younger voters who are more critical of U.S. support for Israel. As efforts to renew the truce between Israel and Hamas continue, the world is recoiling at the reignited war and calling for urgent efforts to stop the violence. Both sides are blaming each other for the breakdown of the truce, and mediation efforts are being complicated by the renewed fighting. It's a challenging situation that requires immediate attention. Lastly, we turn to Malawi, where the government has sent hundreds of citizens to work as farm laborers in Israel. While this move aims to generate jobs and foreign currency, it has sparked controversy due to concerns about the safety of workers amid the ongoing conflict. Transparency and accountability are being called for, as critics compare the arrangement to modern-day slavery. And there you have it, folks, the latest news from across the dimensions. As always, these stories highlight the complexities and challenges we face in our world. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on these topics. So, what are your thoughts? Let the discussion begin. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.